Higher, lower, and Hail Mary quarterbacks. You got two guys. Neither one of them you have much of a discrepancy amongst the experts with. We got Jordan Love playing at Denver. You like him at 9. The experts like him at 10. It seems like any quarterback matching up with Denver, you would say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Also, you like Jared Goff at Baltimore. Slightly bigger discrepancy, but still not much. You like him at 10. The experts like him at 12. That one could come into play because you could be talking about fringe starting, stuff like that. So tell me anything else on either of these guys that is noteworthy.
Well, of course, Jordan Love, Denver. You got to love any position facing Denver, especially quarterback. Second most points allowed to the position, most touchdowns allowed in the league passing-wise. Particularly, they struggle with deep balls, and no quarterback has attempted more deep passes per drop back than Jordan Love right now. And last week was a bit of a dud on the deep passing spectrum. He took a ton of attempts, could not connect with Watson on most of those, but ultimately he has had a successful year when going deep down the field as a whole. So I imagine after the bye, Watson fully getting right. We're going to dive into him in a little more detail later. I do think Love he's had 20-plus points in the 4 straight weeks to start the year. Right. Struggled last week on Thursday Night Football against the Raiders. But other than that, he's been very, very solid. And ultimately, or 2 weeks ago, rather, on Thursday Night Football in that one. But yeah, I really, really like Jordan Love. He's had a great year so far, other than one real dud. What better spot to come out of your bye and just blow a team the doors off them than the Denver Broncos? And then Jared Goff, as you mentioned, I'm stunned that he's this much of a fringe quarterback. He's been the quarterback 4 in back-to-back weeks, and the Ravens do look brutal. So maybe that's why the experts are a little down on him. 31st in points allowed to the quarterback position, but this is who they faced on the year. Week 1, C.J. Stroud with his entire second-string line there. First game of his NFL career. He's really taken off since then. That was not the best C.J. Stroud we've seen. Joe Burrow with no calf. Gardner Minshew. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the Browns. Kenny Pickett. And then Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill. They have not had a single test, this Ravens team, all year. And Goff has been an animal, actually in the MVP conversation at this point of the year. As mentioned, top 4 quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks. He's been top 6 in half of his games. Yes, he does struggle on the road typically, but then last week, boom, 22 points against a good Tampa Bay secondary, 353 yards. Plus, you got no Montgomery. So that means at minimal, probably more red zone attempts, maybe a more pass-happy script. You got a Ravens team on the other side that has not completely hit full go yet, but we've seen glimpses of a really good offense. That game could shoot out. Definitely a lesser running game for them to lean on here with the Detroit Lions too. So I think Goff could definitely outperform this quarterback 12 ranking. And we're going to get into lower. There's a guy that's ranked ahead of him that it makes no sense to me. Jared Goff has such a much higher floor than so many people. I think he's got to be locked in the lineups this week.
It's funny. You sometimes when you have guys that you're 1-2 spots, higher or lower than, I'm like, well, why are we even messing around with this? But your lower guys, you're both 2 lower than the experts on. And it's like, honestly, the guys that we just talked about and these guys, they're probably just like in a 1, 2, 3, 4 stack right now. And
they are.
Moving. So actually, you saying the 2 you prefer and the 2 you don't prefer actually is a little more significant than I thought initially. Yeah. Sam Howell, the guy that you're a little lower on at the Giants, you like him at 13 as opposed to the 11 that the experts like him at. And then you're a little lower on Matt Stafford against Pittsburgh. You like him at 11. The experts actually like him all the way up at 9.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of hit the nail on the head here, especially a quarterback. It's tricky to get significantly huge gaps for the most part when there's only.
Although you do have it on your Hail Mary.
I do have a few Hail Marys, and that's where you can get a little wild with these things. But I try to focus on the higher, lower Hail Marys. Could I say I'm higher on Tua this week? Of course, but everyone's starting Tua anyway. So I tried to go into that pack of quarterbacks 11 through 15, and which ones would I want to start over the others? That's kind of the process here, is to really dive into the guys you're actually considering benching or starting, and which way do I go when I have these couple options. So Sam Howell, sure, he's been good all year, 17 points or more in all but one start. That one start was atrocious. The Bills, 4 interceptions, the interception every quarter. But otherwise, he's been really solid. Most pass attempts over expectation, 3rd most in the league. There's a lot to like about Sam Howell. The Giants, middle of the pack matchup, but I think they're trending the right way. They just held Josh Allen to 14 points. Then they held Tua to 16 points the week before. Seattle quarterbacks only combined for 11 points against them. They've been really turning up the pressure rate across these last few weeks under Wink Martindale. And who gets sacked more than anybody? Sam Howell. He's on pace right now to take an NFL record 95 sacks. I saw a funny tweet. I think it was Cooter Doodle saying, if you had fucked 13 guys across your last 6 weeks, you have taken less sacks to the face than Sam Howell. And it's I was like, that's a pretty good one, ultimately. Sam Howell, I'm worried that the defensive strengths of the Giants, and there's not a ton of them, but they can get pressure. That matches up very poorly for Sam Howell, who should still be okay. But again, over Jared Goff, who he's ranked ahead of right now? No, not in my opinion. Jordan Love, a lot of people saying go Sam Howell over him. To me, I like Sam Howell if that's what you're streaming. Totally. I get it. 38% rostered, a great guy on the quarterback waiver wire if you need somebody, but not above some of those more sure things, in my opinion. Then you mentioned Matt Stafford. This one's a little trickier for me because the Steelers have been a pass funnel defense. It's more so just this is one of those weird discrepancies of Stafford's looked phenomenal real life wise. When you watch a Rams game, he's making some throws that make you say, wow. He's got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. He's got these two receivers that have really been thriving all year, and yet we haven't had Matt Stafford finish above the quarterback 14 all year. He hasn't had more than 17 fantasy points in a single game. This is the ultimate discrepancy of real life, just value looking amazing, and fantasy-wise, just not necessarily dominating. Now, the reason for that is they get so run heavy when they get in the red zone. Kyron Williams has been absorbing all the touchdowns. So maybe I'm overlooking the fact that they don't have Kyron Williams this week. They have Zach Evans, who I'm not high on. Maybe they do just end up taking the air completely, putting it fully under the rock here and letting Matt Stafford just light it up. So I would not be shocked if Stafford makes me look like an idiot for this one. And that's why he's quarterback 11. I'm only a couple spots below ECR. I'm just worried about that track record of the year. The fact, again, that Steelers, yes, they're more of a pass funnel, but only 18th in points allowed. They held Lamar to 10 points the last time out there. Good front that can get to the quarterback really well. And this is a bad Rams offensive line. We've seen Stafford struggle with the pressure throughout this season. So I just think looking at the history of the year, you got to be a little bit more cautious with just tossing Matt Stafford as a no-brainer, locked-in top 10 quarterback, which is what people are assuming he's going to be this year.
That's fair. I referenced the fact that you actually do have a monster discrepancy. No surprise what horse you're riding on this one. But we look at Hail Marys here. The guy leading the list, you got Daniel Jones against the Commanders, and you like him a full 9 spots. That ain't nothing. 9 spots, more than the experts do. Defend your pick here. Go ahead.
Yeah, tough one to defend, and this is probably where we lose all our viewers at this point. But Commanders are allowing the third most points to the position, and that's with Josh Dobbs putting up 0.9 points in week 1. Since then, 25, 22, 24, 32, and 19 points. 2 quarterbacks. It's not a good pass defense by any means. Now, we know this is not a good pass offense. Second lowest pass yards per game in the NFL right now. But Daniel Jones, he has that floor kind of with 40-plus rush yards in 3 of his 4 starts. I know he's scary to trust. It seems like this offense did get their footing, though, last week. And ultimately, Daniel Jones might not play, so we don't want to dive into him too deep. But honestly, if he doesn't play and you're desperate, I think Tyrod Taylor would be similarly benefiting from this decent matchup. Wandale rounding into form, looking really good. Waller finally seeming to get some footing there, too. I just think the offense is coming around a little bit. Certainly not the juggernaut, the diet Bills that we were expecting entering the year. Not even close to that. But I just see positive trends, a good matchup. Maybe this is the spot where Daniel Jones gets his season back on track. I could sure use it. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. But if you don't have him, he's not available to you, or you don't want to go to the Giants, I understand you. Desmond Ridder, only 5% rostered right now. Another big risk because he is completely game script dependent. But when he's been forced to throw for 2 straight weeks now, quarterback 6, quarterback 5, 26 and 19 fantasy points, even with 3 interceptions last week, back-to-back 300-yard days. There is the chance he gets benched because at this point, Taylor Heineke, they got to be thinking about him over there in Atlanta. But at least we know that they can actually just decide to ride with Ridder. And Arthur Smith came out and said, I noticed how stacked the box was, and we have other ways to beat teams. So just the fact he's acknowledging we don't have to just be this run-heavy, run-obsessed team. If that's how they're going to force us to play, we can go for it. And Ridder has, for the most part, again, 3 interceptions, not good. But when he's had to throw it, he's been able to rack up the fantasy stats. And I could imagine that's going to be the script. That's what led to the Falcons losing multiple games. I think teams are going to really stack that box and force Ridder to beat them, which could yield some decent fantasy numbers. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, Share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.